DOSSCON1, we really wanted to position as a community summit. We thought it was kind of a funny reframing of DEF CON 1 and also conference. But really, we think about this as a way for us to bring together a number of operations professionals, brand executives, just overall like technologists, leaders, capital allocators, and really just share time with a relatively light set of agendas and talks, and a lot of time for us to all meet and actually get to know one another and talk about our hardest problems. That's really the whole point of this, is just bringing people together so that we can discuss the things that we actually are working on and the challenges that we're dealing with in a way that takes us away from the day-to-day hours of grind and lets us kind of open up our aperture for the things that we think about and the problems we want to solve. So as a kind of a backdrop for all of this, the sequence of things that I think we want to set agenda-wise for the day that we really want to hit on is we are building a software company that is a platform. But in its own way, the community of people here is a part of the platform. We see this a kind of broader and growing movement where leaders in companies are challenging themselves, they're challenging their own employees. How can we all work towards deconstructing the status quo in how we use technology, how we deploy it into our businesses at the smallest sizes where I know people who are here, I think, that are running their business by themselves as one person. And then there are people who are here who have been CEOs or CFOs of public companies. And across that entire scale and entire range, we have people who are challenging the status quo on what it actually means to use technology in the workplace to make your businesses better, to do more with less toil, to eliminate waste and overall reduce the pain of using systems and doing your daily job, but also to just seize opportunities and drive value faster in ways that we haven't been able to before. These are the things that we talk about with ourselves, with our customers, with our partners, sometimes with our spouses and our friends, much to their annoyance. But this is what we want to bring everyone here for today. So with that, I'm going to kick off kind of the first discussion and really just what we think of as a backdrop to the backdrop of why are we doing this as a company? What's the point? Why ERP? Because no one really wakes up in the morning and gets super excited about organizing business data and building business software. Some of us do, but most people don't. So why is this interesting at all? And we've been positioning this as ARP, and it's an adaptive resource platform. The reason that we use the word adaptive is really, I think, the most important part of the story we want to tell today. So that's what we're going to get through. So there's I can't remember what this quote is actually from, but the ERP is dead, long live ARP. And I put it in quotes because it's a very I would say borderline naive and bold thing to say. But as someone who's been again, much to kind of my own admission of nerdiness, a student of the industry, this is not something that's not happened before. The industry has been written and rewritten multiple times over the last 50 years, maybe even, let's say, 70 years, depending on how you slice it. The ability for us to actually defiantly say that that's true, I think we can look back into time and tell a really clear story that the story of ERP itself is a story about computers and how they're used in the workplace. So if we go all the way back, we can even take it, let's say a couple thousand years back to Mesopotamia. The ledger, people used to do receipts on stone ledgers, which is where the word ledger gets used in the GL. Using DOS is a little bit easier than that. But the whole point is that this is not really a new concept, and for us to try to change it is actually a natural part of the progression. And so, when we think about how mainframes were, utilized by largest banks and by the government to count people's, information for the census or to count balances for the largest companies and their, what they owed Bank of America, to then SAP building applications on top of that, Oracle building the database and the real first relational database, and then building more applications on top of that, moving those into PCs, then moving them ultimately into the cloud. This is just a part of the journey, and we see, that we think there's an opportunity for us to take I think a stewardship type role in forming what this means for the industry and for the customers and the people that use this. And so, given this broad horizon and kind of the backdrop of this, I think there's, I can't remember the exact stat, but it's some odd hundreds of billions of dollars are spent on this over a number of years in industry today. Despite all of that, the results are a little controversial. And this is not just my opinion. This is the efforts of many people who have, many of which in the room here have done this for their entire careers. And the results are, like as I said, it's been very hard to get the right output. So why is it still so hard? It's because we're doing something difficult. It's not, fortunately for the people in here, we're not doing something easy and we're failing at it. We're doing maybe one of the hardest things possible and succeeding against the odds is the best way to frame it. What we're doing is we're taking the high dimensionality of the last mile of what represents a business and how it works, and we're trying to make it in an information model. We're doing so in a way that is something we can't mess up. Again, people say, don't touch it if it's not broken, or if it ain't broke, don't fix it. With ERP, that rings especially true because if you shut the system down, sometimes it means equivalently just shutting down a company's business. I heard from, I think, a leader one time at a logistics company that they said that if their ERP went down, trucks would stop rolling in 2 hours and the business would be insolvent in 2 weeks. And so these are the kinds of stakes that people deal with when they think about these systems. And so the final part that really makes it super hard, because it wasn't hard enough already, is that the applications have to stay in step with reality. If you change the strategy of your business and you're a retailer and you decide at a certain point that we actually need to unwind our retail positions and move towards e-commerce, but your entire information model and your ERP is built around a retail business, well, you might have to go through a 2-year implementation before you can become an e-commerce company. And that's not how quickly the world works. The world moves faster. And so for us to be able to adequately address these problems, we actually had to build something completely new. And again, being a student of history, we did so with a lot of reluctance. Arnav, who's in the back of the room, him and I stared at each other and sat in a room and really said, are we going to do this because everyone else who does this doesn't do a super great job at this? And so we thought really hard before, I think jumping, so to speak, jumping off the cliff. But we came up with a few primitives and a few kind of axioms that really we think are the underlying principles that allow us to achieve the results that we have so far and where we're going. So composability, which is really solving that last mile of complexity. Durability, which is making it so that you're not going to vibe code your accounts payable and just maybe send someone a check that they shouldn't receive. And then accelerated, which is that I think everyone in here is aware of how long these systems take to implement. We probably should make them faster. And so the goal is to build an adaptive resource platform. Adaptive really being the key part here, which is you need to adapt the applications for the business's strategy and not adapt your strategy around what the applications can do. We'll have a talk on this in a little bit later with a couple members of some people who have run professional services organizations at the world's biggest and best ERP companies, and they'll tell you, the answer always ends up being use the system out of the box as much as you can. That can be a challenge for companies that need to modify the system to serve the strategy of their company. And so dealing with that fundamental tension was one of the things that we knew we would have to address. And so fundamentally, if we think about what this product is, well, everyone kind of jokes online that ERPs are just databases, and you make them look a little nicer. And in some cases, you don't make them look nicer. Sometimes you keep them as they are. We started under a very similar premise. And so we have the core, which really divides into its main 2 parts, which is the stuff that I store related to our master data and our transactional data. And for folks who have been involved in large-scale Oracle and SAP implementations, this is not a new concept. We're not inventing anything at all. We're using the things that have been, I think, innovated on for the last 50 years, and we're trying to do the best we can using what everyone has come to understand about business data, which is that you take these concepts, you report on them, you use terms like inventory, and inventory is a representation of sales orders and SKUs as they get matched together, and then you fuse them through a ledger. And the ledger tells you about what happens, what is, and what will be. And it has a twin, which is the finance and accounting component of it. And it turns out they're kind of the same thing. They just apply to different concepts. One of them is the flow of goods, and then the other one's the flow of dollars. And again, the very clever people who designed and built a lot of these systems in the past realized we can actually put them together entirely and put a rules engine that allows us to make it so that when I change something inside of our inventory, that it actually goes and flows correctly over to our finance and accounting systems. And neither of them will ever be out of sync with one another. And we went ahead and designed DOS under the exact same guiding principles. And so when you end up putting all this together, you get this very nice box of durable applications that does what you think it's going to do and is able to be capturing the core essence of how you transact with sales, finance, accounting, inventory, procurement, freight, all the different things that flow goods into and out of your business, that flow dollars into and out of your business. That's all great, but what about composability? When we have third-party applications, how do we actually bring in and operate on systems that are not our own product? And so if we stack up all these applications, this is all great, and it's a very cool nucleus-looking thing. But ultimately, if we want to bring real value to a lot of the market today, where there's a proliferation of vertical-specific products, industry-specific products, and products that are specific for even the largest companies in the world that you have your own internal applications you've built, we need to be able to connect to them as if they were a part of the product itself. And we thought about that from day one, and Arnav and I's joke about this is that our answer to everything is we will build it, and we did. And in this case, it's basically building a lot of integrations to other people's applications and treating them with the kindness, courtesy, and respect as if they were our own. And that was, let's say, 36 months ago when we started out building this. After 18 months, we released the first version of the product, and now we've rolled it out to 70 organizations plus around the world. Some of you in here, some of you in here soon, and then hopefully some of you after that, we maybe go through some sales processes. But these are businesses that range a wide set of capabilities. We're not going after one specific market and saying we're going to go and solve the bakery problems for every bakery in North America. We're saying we want to solve the meta problem for companies that are roasting coffee, or they're demolishing buildings, or they're distributing vegetables. And sometimes those vegetables, they call them fruit, but who cares? And they're fabricating metal. And that's really the power of building a composable system, that you don't have to box yourself in. And at the same time, you don't have to box your customers in. And we think the only thing that's not true on what's on here is that we don't have dark mode. And so our framing of a lot of what we do as a company is being stewards and partners to our customers. But I think the part that's extremely painful for me is that we know that we can do better. And we know that we can always go faster. And that in selling to them and in working with them, we still put a lot of risk on them in their business. We put a lot of risk and time on their calendars. And we have to do more if we want to change the industry and change the experience for our customers the way that we think is possible. And so 3 years, and actually this is I think, the exact third-year anniversary since we incorporated the company, we're going to kind of pull back what we think is the next chapter for the business. So we definitely nailed the first two. Composability, we may have a little too much of it. Durability, definitely. But it's not fast enough. And it's not saying that the platform doesn't load quickly enough. It's that the effort and energy that you have to put in order to make it real and to make it model itself after your own business, it still takes too much time. But that's not going to be true starting, let's say, in the next couple of weeks as we roll out Dossbot, which is a kind of a funny thing because we couldn't figure out what to name it, and we're like, let's just call it Dossbot. And unfortunately, it made its way into the code base, and now it's Dossbot. And so it is exactly what you would think it is. It's the reincarnation of Clippy, for those of you old enough to remember Clippy. And it's built directly into DOS. And so it's not a layer on top. It's woven throughout. And the idea is that it can do all of the things that you are used to doing by hand, and it can understand your business in its information model as well as you do, and sometimes even better. And here are some simple examples. We'll show you a live demo in a minute, but here's Dossbot helping me out with understanding some inventory status. Here's some stuff where it's going through and actually creating different views on top of our data and reports. Here, it's actually going and figuring out which packaging materials are in our master data are incorrect. And it really has shocked me in every way since we started building it, how deep of an understanding it has of the information model of the companies inside of it, inside of its context. So I'll turn over and start showing a quick demo on this, but bear with me as I get the screens pulled up. This is actually a live demo. So here we are inside of an instance of DOS. And I can see here I've got a bunch of tables. So we've got this massive table we can see here. Great. So we've got about 200,000 records on here. Nice. And we can see Dossbot hanging out in the corner. And let me just go in and see. I'm going to delete this view because I was testing this out earlier. And let's just see how it does. So I don't really want to read all this stuff because it looks like a bunch of logs. And Dossbot's going to go to work for me and take a detailed look at everything inside of our system. And I can actually see it thinking. It's chugging along very, very hard at work. And it's going to take a look at whatever is inside of our products' tables and try to understand what I would describe as the ontological structure of the data model. And based on this ontological structure, it's going to understand exactly how it can build representations that are useful for us. So let me just go and open this up. So I asked it to just go through and take a look at some of the views inside of the tags table, or inside of the tags on top of our logs. And based on what it finds, can it just like build some reports for me? And so this is helpful. It's like, OK, but now I got to go create all these. So I'm feeling kind of, it's a Monday. So let's just, I don't know, 3 of them. That seems useful for the team, right? Let's go make 3. OK, I'm just going to type. Hey, I'm feeling tired. Can you just make a few of these that seem important? Oh, I typed it 3 times. There we go. Well, let's see how it does. And so this is the, it's really going to have to work on this one. It's going to be like, man, he needs some help. And so it's going to plan out its steps. And so that's the nice thing about this is that we take a lot of, I think a lot of this for granted for folks of you who are used to using ChatGPT and other systems, is that they get pretty good at interpreting the things that we think are, maybe a little hard to be coherent about. They're like, you know what, we've seen some weird stuff on the internet, you'll figure it out. And so here we go. OK, again, I don't want to go look for these. I'm going to just be like, dude, just send me the links, man. Can you just send me the links to the views, please? There we go. Good job, Dossbot. Thanks, buddy. OK, let's try it. Let's see. OK, that's useful. What did it do? OK, it created a view for me of all my subscriptions. That's nice. Wow, this is a lot of subscriptions. If only there were a way for me to filter down. Let's go back to when we were talking to Dossbot and be like, actually, can you make me a new view of all of my subs that are recurring, that are larger than IDK $10? Oh, there you go. Oh, it failed. OK. Well, see, this is the lovely part about doing live demos. And so what's really nice, though, is I can just go back up here and be like, hey, in our Shopify order logs, please. And Dossbot will get back to work. And so this is why it's still in closed beta. But that is one really cool thing about this is that we don't have to put a ton of engineering work into the actual intelligence of the air quotes the AI agent that's in the system. It's actually the underlying platform and infrastructure that it can work with and the ergonomics of it that make it so powerful. Because if we look inside of here, it's actually running a bunch of very simple steps. It's going and saying, I'm going to go get a bunch of our tabular data. I'm going to go look at it. And then, great, I went in and I made a view for you to go check this out. Awesome, recurring subs over 10 bucks. And that's the magic of this, is that when you build a composable system and you make it super ergonomic, not just for human beings, but for LLMs, you benefit from the fact that, I think just down the street, all the geniuses at OpenAI, they're going to make our lives a lot easier, and all we have to focus on is writing really, really ergonomic software for language models to interact with. So that's one fun example of how Dossbot functions in practice. Let me log out, and let's go do another one. And let's go try a really challenging one. So this one's kind of funny because I noticed, this was on Friday last week, I was working on this. I noticed that there was something really weird happening in our work orders. And I think there's something wrong with the SKUs for this business. I don't know what they did. I'm pretty sure I was the one that uploaded it, so mea culpa. But there's something wrong inside of their product catalog, and I don't really know what it is. I don't really feel like figuring it out. And so let's see what Dossbot thinks. This one might take a little bit, because it's going to have to go look at a lot of stuff. So it does what a normal person would do. It's going to just go and see and look around inside of the data structures. And it's going to query quite a few things. It's going to get information out of its tables. And we'll talk in a little bit about the other capabilities that we're going to add to Dossbot. But the idea is that right now it's just operating as a person would and looking around inside of the content and at the schemas of the tables. What's going to be really cool is in the coming months, we're actually going to give it a lot more capabilities to be able to make updates to the system, obviously in a very safe manner, as if it were doing migrations. And I think what's going to be really powerful about this is that because the underlying apparatus for this is just running SQL and running code, it's actually pretty good at understanding how to do it better than I would, because it's not that I am not great at writing SQL, but I'm going to go to ChatGPT and have it write it for me anyways, and then go and verify. The ability to go and make those commits and then roll them back if you need to is going to be built into the underlying system. So you can make analysis like this and then go and immediately drive the corrective actions. And so let's see on here. Yeah, this is exactly what was wrong. I noticed that when we were doing our work orders, we were not transforming the inputs into the outputs correctly. And it's because and it actually noticed this, that some of our SKUs are self-referencing where the finished goods are referencing inside of the raw material themselves. And it was just an issue in how the data got uploaded. And so in this scenario here, which of the items are circularly referenced? Can you make a plan for me to fix this, please? I don't want to get fired. And let's see what Dossbot does. Let's see if it's feeling sympathetic for me today. And so that's what's really nice about this, is that we are only a few tool calls away from Dossbot actually being able to go and reconcile these problems itself. And I think you can kind of follow the train of thought here, which is that if it's able to take actions on its own, it's able to synthesize and understand problems on its own, all we need to be able to do is create more frameworks for it to be able to receive context about what's happening in the business and take action on what's happening in the business. And so we'll show in the roadmap slide, but a lot of this is going to include being able to run it in the background as workflows, which is a native part of what we do inside of the product already. It's going to have the ability to actually take file inputs from third-party applications. So very commonly, people are receiving emails, and you're like, I don't know what this thing is. It's a sales order maybe from some distributor. I don't want to think about this. Let's let Dossbot think about it, figure out what table to put it in, which sales order it's associated with, which invoice it might be associated with, and run three-way matches on its own. And then all we have to go in and do is basically take a look at the results. And so it's working hard on this. OK, let's see. Nice. Wow. 45 minutes to 1 hour. You've got this. OK. I feel a lot better about this now, guys. I think I have my job still. Thank you. Oh, man. Dossbot has a lot of it's a little bit on the nose. It's got a sense of humor. So wait. Ground bird. What the hell is this thing? I think this is a pet food company, if I'm not mistaken. OK, so yeah, it looks like we are referencing the cow and the other bird in the bird. That's not right. So we can go fix that one. We'll fix our multi-pack SKUs. Yeah, this all makes sense. OK, cool. That's great. Thanks, Dossbot. So, as I'm going into this meeting with my boss, I am a little nervous that I just honestly don't understand how the system works at all. And so I'm going to ask for just a little more help. And let's see. Can you just make me a diagram, Dossbot, that tells me how our whole system works? Because I think my boss is going to quiz me on it. And genuinely, again, I'm worried about getting fired here. So let's just see what Dossbot thinks. And again, you can see the kind of prompt engineering we're doing here, guys. We're asking for an ASCII ERD. You're not going to have to ask for that in the future. It's going to be able to make charts and graphs and flow charts for you. And it's going to actually be able to represent, oh my gosh, it's doing a lot of work. This would have been a lot of time for me to go figure all this out. And so in the future, as we're rolling out more and more features for Dossbot, it's not going to need to be able to, to be prompted so heavily to tell it what to do. Let's see. Let's see if its brain melts trying to do all this work. Let's see. What did it do? OK. Well, wait, what is this? I don't know what this is. Let's see. Oh my gosh, it made me an entire diagram of our entire data model. Jesus Christ. OK. I'm going to print this out. I think my boss will be impressed. So this is what's possible as a result of it having a very, very rudimentary understanding of the data model, is that all of the intelligence that comes inside of large language models that continue to get better week over week, we get for free. And not for free, for $1 for 1 million tokens, but mostly for free. And again, the multiple years of hard work putting this into a almost like game engine for the LLM to go and roam around in and figure out things like this. It's doing this to kind of use our. This is my favorite reference for this in the company. Is it's kind of like what's his name in Shawshank, where he's digging out of the prison with a spoon. We're only just now giving it spoons. When we give it more technology and more tooling to be able to go and build more effectively on top of itself, you're not going to get ASCII ERD diagrams like this. Instead, you're going to get a full-blown visualization of the entire data model, and you're going to be able to roam around in it like Matthew McConaughey at the end of Interstellar. And so that's what's going to be possible in just a few quarters as we continue to productize Dossbot further and further. And with that, I'll jump back over to our presentation. And so we just showed some examples on this. What is it going to look like when it's going to be able to go and say, what are our SKUs that are low in quantity? Can you go and figure this out for me? I don't feel like thinking about it. It's Monday. All the way down to, I need to come up with a new framework for how we're creating sales commission. Can you look at how we do it today? Can we map out what we might want to do in the future and then go in and apply those changes? This is the stuff that's possible when you build a platform. And here's a roadmap of some of the rough stuff we're going to go do. Pretty excited about a lot of these. I think the coolest one in here is going to basically be what we end up rolling out in the next couple of weeks, which is going to be the ability to actually screen share. And you can basically have it follow along with you as you do tasks, and it'll pick up context. And you can then ask a question based on what it's seeing as opposed to what it's just being texted in. So that's going to be really powerful. I know our implementation team is going to be super happy about that one. And so in classic Billy Mays form, that's not all. The Dossbot story is really just a piece in the puzzle. Or I think if anything, you can say is it's the connective tissue that sits inside of everything. And as a company, we think we're just getting started. And so what we want to do in 2026 is really start laying out what we think are the building blocks to the next few years, the next decade. And the first step in that is taking what we built as our integrated data platform and really expanding it out horizontally on top of underneath everything else that we want to build. that basically means making Data Studio its own standalone BI product, which is going to be immensely exciting. All of our customers ask for this. And we want to have one less thing that you guys have to pay for. We want to have one more thing that you can get for free as a part of what we've been able to deliver in our platform. Similarly, we want to be able to roll out a embedded EDI network. I think I wouldn't need a show of hands, but I would say most people in this room have dealt with EDI at some point in their life, much to their own dismay. And we want to make that a less painful experience for everyone, including ourselves. So in a way, it is a little selfish, but we do really, really want to make it easy for everyone to bring on new trading partners. We want to be able to power this all with what may eventually be an open source framework that fuses together transactional data and analytical data as a best-in-class database solution, built on best-in-class database solutions. We want to be able to power this all with a workflow engine that actually just compiles down natively to code. And so, again, human beings are not the bottleneck here. LLMs are able to interact with it natively. And then we want to back the whole thing with what's basically a Git-like version control system that allows you to bring in future versions of DOS and merge them in without going through a year or multi-year or sometimes decade-long migration that involves hundreds of thousands of hours of professional services. This is the future that we're painting, and it all runs on our own cloud. It runs on third-party clouds that you may or may not be using already and may want to use and have the optionality to use in the future. And if you're one of those super special top secret people that has to run it on-prem, we can help you with that too. And of course, Dossbot's everywhere. The idea is that we want to be able to take every single thing you do in your company that's related to operations, finance, the moving of physical goods, the moving of dollars, and the data that stitches that all together, and make it be so that you can have an entire operations cloud that supports all of that. And the idea is that it's a cloud that's built for real-world companies, not just for information companies. And this is something that we're going to be rolling out in 2026, and it's really the vision that we wanted to share with all you guys. So thank you, everyone, for coming and for the first section of this. Thank you again to all of our partners who have made the long trek out. But this is what we're working towards, and we really, really are happy to be able to share all of it with you every day. So thank you.